Um, Good morning, and as always, it's a pleasure to be with you and the Natural uh, Dharma Fellowship. Um, uh, my date changed a number of times, so months ago, back in November, I came upon this title and this story that I was going to share, and then I forgot what date I was supposed to be here, and as luck would have it, I got an email from Laura reminding me. Um, and somewhere around 5 in the morning today, Yunmen's cake came back into my mind. And not only am I recorded, I'm being transcribed like that. And then, so I've been able to search it up. And after we do some subjectless and objectless meditation and a break, we'll explore Yunmen's cake. So initially, um, I'd like to begin by a short guided meditation and then leave us each alone together to aimlessly wander through our body-mind experience with our beginning, with our attention on our breath. So in Zen, much is made of posture. And the idea here is that if we're sitting in a chair, we sit up straight with our feet connected with the floor and our weight on our buttocks, sits bones, our shoulders over our pelvis, and our spine straight. And as well, if sitting cross-legged or in a chair, supporting our torso under our own strength, if you will. It's quite okay if we're not able to, uh, for one reason or another, to lean back into a chair or something. And our chin is in a slight bit. It's in sort of like this. It's not tightly in, and it's not up. Our mouth is lightly closed, and our lips are touching, and our teeth are touching, and our tongue is at the front roof of our mouth where the teeth and the roof of the mouth come together. Our eyes are at about a 60-degree angle towards the floor with a gentle gaze, not focused on anything in particular, just receptive and in focus. And we're breathing through our nose. And we want to bring our attention to the place in our body where we most easily experience the physical sensation of breathing, of respiration. Letting our bodies settle in contact with what we'll call the earth. Our hands can be palms down on our knees or thighs or nested in our lap. The Zen form is generally what's called the cosmic mudra, where the left hand sits on top of the right hand, the fingers of the left hand at the end of the fingers of the right hand, and our thumbs forming somewhat of an oval and barely touching one another. A short distance, an inch maybe, or two, below our navel. to give a little bit too much from the Zen perspective information, the relationship between our nose, the tongue at the front roof of our mouth, our chin, our solar plexus, our belly button, and our thumbs are key elements of our awareness as we bring our awareness into our body. And whatever thoughts or feelings we're experiencing, just letting them be, not trying to push them away, not trying to calm ourselves, and certainly not analyzing what's going on. Just letting everything be. And the next step is to take our right hand and place it on our diaphragm and bring our awareness to that place where the palm of our hand and our diaphragm meet. And feel the rise and fall of our diaphragm with each inhalation and exhalation. And simply follow that rise and fall, bringing our attention into our thorax. And when you feel confident that you're capable and able to keep your attention on following the rising and falling of your diaphragm, you're welcome to put your hand back in your lap. And at any point, when our friends' intrusive thoughts and feelings take us away, you're welcome to bring your hand back to your diaphragm, to bring your attention back down into your body, rising and falling with your diaphragm. We're not trying to breathe deeply. We're not trying to breathe slowly. It doesn't matter if our breath is short or fast. Just being present with the respiration that's occurring. In some sense, becoming aware of our attempt to manipulate and control our breath, how hard it might be simply to rise and fall with whatever is occurring in our respiration. What I've been told by the neuroscience department is that what, in the scientific perspective, is effectively happening here is we're actually transforming or transferring our nervous system from the sympathetic world of adrenaline and cortisol to the parasympathetic, acetylcholine. And as our belly relaxes, the neurotransmitters in our belly release serotonin. And there seem to be more neurotransmitters in our belly than in our brain. So this process of following our breath, bringing our attention into our diaphragm, naturally slows our respiration rate and naturally, if we call it naturally, lowers our heart rate and our blood pressure. There was no one around to tell this to Yunmen, or the millions of people who've done this, we'll call it yogic practice, for thousands of years. But somehow to know this information helps we moderns, affirms that this is okay. The other thing that our science department tells us is that even if you don't feel calm, if you don't feel like, oh, I'm meditating, you don't feel like uh, there are no thoughts, or these intrusive thoughts and my anxiety are overwhelming. Just taking the time to be present with whatever is happening and bringing our attention into our diaphragm and our breath literally has measurable outcomes in the science world, i.e., slower heart rate, slower respiration rate, and lower blood pressure. So this is working beyond our interpretation of what's happening. We could say this is the beginning of Yunmen's cake. That everything that our very being is beyond what we know, we think we know, we think we're experiencing. Not that it doesn't include it. You could say that in the Zen world, this is the practice of the first perfection, dana, generosity, giving our complete attention. Each breath completely unique. Each inhalation, each exhalation, completely unique. Each heartbeat. Just letting what we call our breath be. What are toes? What are fingers? Lips, eyeballs, ears, tongue, teeth, pelvis, lungs. Welcome back. Um, I think now we'll take a 10-minute break, bio and all. Do you want to direct us, Laura?
Yeah, everyone come back at 5 to 11. I'll put up a slide.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone.
We're here. Wonderful. So, traditionally and formally, before a what we've called a Dharma talk nowadays, which in Japanese is a teisho, which Dharma talk doesn't exactly translate. Um, One friend of mine, another teacher, uh, uh, teacher in quotation marks, um, Norman Fisher calls Dharma talks or teishos shout outs. So they're not they're not informational events in the traditional sense. They're not like a curriculum, a field of study. They're generally an experience. Um, some people take notes, but I think the notes don't make too much sense after a while. At any rate, before one of these experiences begins, we do uh, a short verse. We'll call it a chant, and I'll do that. I don't expect you to know it, but it's. I think you might find it, the translation, which I'll chant, interesting. An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to hear and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. Okay. So as promised, we're going to eat. Actually, we've already eaten some of Yunmen's cake in our sitting still and being present. But I will share the story here on the screen. Share. Yes, this may work. Let's see. Can I move that over and over and over and over and over and over? Yeah, there we go. I believe people can see that. And is it large enough to read along? Yeah. You, I have to pay my respects to people who may not know that this is the 77th, as you can see, case or story of a collection of Zen stories called the Blue Cliff Record. And it was put together in the 12th century in China based on recollections and notes by a particular monk of the history of various interactions between between practitioners. And it's important to understand that these are, if we call them conversations, interactions between people who are making the effort to do what we call practice and realize that in our life. Some of whom have been doing this for 40 years and bumping into one another rather regularly. So they know one another rather well, and they care for one another a great deal. So Yunmen's cake. Oh, I have to also pay respect to a man by the name of Thomas Cleary, who translated the entire Blue Cliff record sometime back in the 70s. Um, and it bears some 70s language in it, so put up with that, please. But Tom Cleary was brilliant. He just had the gift of translation and the dedication, incredible dedication to his work. And it provided the opportunity for many of us in the 70s to access something we've been longing to for years, teachings. So here we go. These stories start with a pointer. And often when you're new to this business, the pointer is maybe more confusing than the story. You might think that they're giving you a sort of executive summary here, which they are, but none of us are yet executives. So turning upwards, he can pierce the nostrils of everyone on the earth like a falcon catching a pigeon. And when I say the 70s, and maybe the 13th century China too, the he part, this is all human beings. Turning upwards, they can pierce the nostrils of everyone on earth like a falcon catching a pigeon. Turning downwards, their own nostrils are in the hands of other people, like a turtle hiding in its shell. So nostrils are very important in Zen. They're very important, as we may have noticed, in our meditation. We breathe through our nostrils. And when we bring our attention to our nostrils, we're pretty much right where we are. And this is the point. And there are any number of Zen stories where somebody grabs somebody by their nostrils to wake them up, to bring them back. I think they're stories. I don't think people are running around grabbing people by their nostrils. Here, right here, if someone suddenly comes forth and says, fundamentally, there is no upwards and downwards, what use is turning? So we could say, if there were such a realm, the one we make up, an absolute realm, in the absolute realm, there is no up or down, east or west, John or Laura. All these are made up. That's not to say that this phenomena that you're experiencing as John doesn't exist. It just means that it's not just that John, or that Laura, or that spouse, or that child. So how do we live in a world that is, how shall I say, socially created? How do we live in a world that literally can, our orientation can crumble? So part of the practice here of what's called immovability or unshakable is to develop our capacity to be in a world, in an existence, prior to orientation, if you will. Here, if someone suddenly comes forth and says, fundamentally, there is no upwards and downwards, what use is turning? Now, yes, it's true. Upwards, downwards, all that stuff. But are you just saying that, or can you really operate in that world? I simply say to them, I know that you are going inside the ghost cave to make your living. So we're making up stories. We still have a concept of what it is. And then we're bringing that to be wherever we go, as though that were or is the truth. But say, how will you distinguish initiate from knave? After a silence, Yuan Wu said, if you have precepts, go by the precepts. If you have no precepts, go by the example. So if we're an initiate, this way of operating in this world with no up or down, left or right, is unclear to us. And perceiving the precepts as a guide, we can use them that way for a time. Until such time that the precepts are embodied. Until such time where our interdependence with all being and existence and phenomena is clear to us and affects us in such a way that we no longer relate to the precepts as rules. They're just the natural, if you will, occurrence of our life. So the case. A monk asked Yunmen, what is talk that goes beyond Buddhas and patriarchs? We now say ancestors. Yunmen said, cake. Isn't that obvious? So then there are side notes that might help us out. So when what is talk that goes beyond Buddhas and patriarchs? One, he opens up. Suddenly there's thunder over the parched earth. And he presses. He's pressing Yunmen, asking a seemingly important question, testing him some way. Two, Yunmen said cake. The tongue is pressed against the roof of the mouth. Where was our tongue when meditating? It's already gone by. Meaning the fellows doesn't know about where the tongue should be. And the person is, how shall we say, asking a secondary question. So this monk asked Yunmen, what is talk that goes beyond Buddhas and ancestors? Man said, cake. Do you feel your hairs standing on end with the chill? This could be a reference to the awareness in our body as we develop and mature in meditation of literally our skin and literally the pores of our skin and the hairs on our arms as an extension of our sensing. Patch-robe monks have asked about Buddhas and asked about ancestors, asked about Chan, Chinese Zen, and asked about Tao, the way, asked about facing upwards and facing downwards. There's nothing more that can be asked. Yet this one posed a question and asked about talk that goes beyond Buddhas and ancestors. So we're trying to figure out What's beyond this? Sort of like gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi, svaha. That also relates to the other gone. Yunmen was an adept. Thus, when the water rises, the boats ride high. And when there's much mud, the Buddha image is big. When there's much mud, the Buddha image is big, as though the Buddha was somewhere else, and we aspire to this somewhere else. So they answered saying, cake. This is a way of saying, I would say that in the old days, I don't know now anymore that we even talk about it, but there are all these ideas about something called Kensho and the other one, I can't remember what it's called, this awakening thing. But, but the first true awakening, if there is such a thing, in Zen might be, or in our practice, is that there's no place else to go. That right where we are is where the tongue is at the roof of our mouth, where our breath occurs, where we are. And to come to this, to not worry about going beyond something. How can one go beyond Buddhas and ancestors when one is not beyond self and fully accepting of the emergence of self? That is not going any place away, not going away, bringing it back to our diaphragm until bringing it back is way beyond our diaphragm. It can be said that the way is not carried out in vain, that his effort is not wasted. It's not, and yet there's some correction going on. There's some bringing back going on. There's some grabbing by the nostrils. Yunmen also taught the assembly saying, without any understanding, when you see people talking about the intent of the ancestral teachers, you immediately ask for theories of talk that goes beyond Buddhas and ancestors. But what do you call Buddhas? What do you call ancestors that you immediately speak of talk that transcends Buddhas and ancestors? Then you ask about escape from the triple world, desire, form, formless world. But you take hold of the triple world to see, in the sense of giving ourselves completely to awareness of the rise and fall of our diaphragm. We're letting go of the triple world. We're following. We're releasing. We're letting be. Not grasping. Not grasping our breath, our diaphragm, our body, or familiarizing ourselves with just how we do grasp. Over and over and over again. Then you ask about escape from the triple world, but you take hold of the triple world to see. I can attain something beyond Buddhas and ancestors. Again, beyond is right here. Our existence is beyond what we can imagine. and has an effect beyond. When that begins to inform us, we refer back to the transformation of our life from a list of uh, how to act in the precepts to embodying said. What seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing are there to hinder you? And if we're familiar with the Heart Sutra, where there are no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no everything else, um, then what is this eyeball? What is this cheek? And what are my lips? The my, what is the my? This is the land we're in. Questioning and letting go. Letting our eyes be. Letting our nose be. Letting our ears be. Letting go of a Portuguese scholar by the name of Boavista, it was his last name, uh, wrote a huge tome on freeing ourselves from the cognitive empire. I'm not suggesting you read it, but I love the title. So, freeing our eyeballs from the cognitive empire, freeing our eyeballs from the syntax and logic of our language, the syntax and grammar of our being. The question is really already what seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing are there to hinder us? What phenomena of sound and form are there that we can be made to understand? The other day, a now dear friend who I work at Wellesley College as a chaplain, and I was a student who just came for a year from Korea, from Yunmen University, and uh, she came to meditate twice a week with us and so on, and is quite a lovely person, and we've continued our Zoom meetings every couple of weeks over from Seoul to Boston, and she sent me a poem the other day. Uh, it wasn't a poem of hers; it was a sung, S-U-N-G, as in singing, Korean poem, and it was totally a cappella and one voice, and it was totally devastating. And what does this rate? What phenomena of sound and form are there that you can be made to understand? Uh, it, the experience of this voice, the experience of this breath, if you will, was beyond understanding, not limited. So when is that in our lives? Where is that in our lives? What phenomena of sound, form are there that you can be made to understand? What bowl do you know how to use? Thich Nhat Hanh, or the people who run Thich Nhat Hanh's meme operation on Instagram, had a piece up, uh, or they took a piece from some part of his writing, where he spoke about his experience of washing his bowls when he realized that washing his bowls was Buddha, or whatever Buddha means to us. But this moment, this not this feeling, sensing, not knowing presence Bowls have a big deal in Zen. There's a story about a famous Zen master, Chow Chow, and a new student who's at the monastery comes and asks him, um, what is the meaning of Buddhism? And Chow Chow asks him, have you had breakfast? And the monk says, yes. And then Chow Chow says, then go wash your bowls. On what basis do you entertain views of differentiations? Uh, Friday night, I was at a gathering at the Harvard Divinity School that the students put together, the Buddhist students put together in the Buddhist chaplaincy program called Burning Refuge, which is about diversity and inclusivity, totally, including, uh, uh, LGBTQ, trans communities, people of color, and so on, into the spaces of Buddhism. And actually, some Asians, how shall we say, reclaiming the territory of Buddhism that they experience has become, in quotation marks, a white, I put it in quotation marks, a white space. And so, so on what basis do we entertain views of differentiation? And I guess we could bring that to non-inclusion. Those ancient sages can't do anything more for you, though they extend themselves to help living beings. Even if they say that the whole body is entirely real, that in everything we see the essence, this is ungraspable. When I say to you, in fact, what concerns are there? This has already buried it. If we can understand this statement, then we can recognize the cake. I don't know if in Tibetan Buddhism they use language like this, but this occurs in Zen rather regularly. Wu Tzu said, donkey shit is like horse shit. This is what Jung Chia called going direct to the root source, as the Buddhas have sealed. Picking through leaves and searching through twigs, I cannot do. When you get to this point, if you want to attain intimacy, don't ask questions. Recognize, maybe, that questions and answers are a form of breathing together. In fact, they are breathing together. Finding resonance might be right speech, not in the sense of correct. If we said, once we establish the ground, we can play in the twigs and let them go. Observe how this monk asked, what is talk that goes beyond Buddhas and ancestors? And Yunmen said, cake. Does Yunmen know shame? Is he aware of indulging? There is a type of phony person who says, Yunmen saw the rabbit and released the hawk, thus he said cake. The commentary of someone who thinks they know what transpired. or that they can explain what transpired. Sort of like me. If you take such a view that cake is talk that goes beyond Buddhas and ancestors, how can there be a living road? The living road is humanity. It's human beings. Um, the second story in a collection of Zen stories called the Woman Guan has the story of the fox. And the synopsis is a bit like this. There's an abbot of a monastery in China who gives Dharma talks regularly, and there's this old man, sort of like me, standing in the background and listening. And then every time the abbot walks out, the guy's gone. And then one day, as the abbot's walking out, the guy's there. And he says, "Can you help me out? 300 lifetimes ago, I was the abbot of this monastery. And someone asked me, is an awakened person free of causes and conditions? And I said yes. And then, kaboom happened. He was then put in jail to be a fox for 300 lifetimes. So the abbot looked at him and said, an awakened person is always aware of causes and conditions. I would add that to say, makes their best effort to be aware of causes and conditions. At that, our friend, the old man and the fox, was enlightened, and he said to him, tomorrow morning, you will find a dead fox carcass under this stone, huge stone behind the monastery. Please drag the body out and give it a full monk's funeral. That night in the meditation hall, the abbot announced that there will be a funeral for a monk tomorrow morning, and everybody looked around. Who died? And then they walked around the monastery in a procession back, and he took his dharma staff and pulled out a dead fox carcass, and they had a memorial funeral service for him. So we're all human beings. We're all the production of causes and conditions before our eyes. It's rather miraculous. Always emergent. So if you take such a view that cake is talk that goes beyond Buddhas and ancestors, how can there be a living road? Another little story about Zhao Zhou is a monk comes to him and asks him, what is meditation? Zhao Zhou says, non-meditation. Monk, how can meditation be non-meditation? And Zhao Zhou gives one of these big Zen shouts. It's alive! It's not dampered. It's fully alive. Its pores, and hair follicles are aware. If you take such a view that cake is talk that goes beyond Buddhas and ancestors, how can there be a living road? Don't understand it as cake, and don't understand it as going beyond Buddhas and ancestors. Huh? This, then, is the living road. Yunmen's cake is the same as Dongshan's 3 pounds of hemp, and Hoshan's knowing how to beat the drum. Though he just said cake, its reality is hard to see. We can't see if we're looking for a particular thing. Seeing is already beyond our cognitive empire. Later, people often made up rationalizations and said coarse words and subtle talk all come back to the primary truth. If you understand in this fashion, just go be a lecturer and spend your life collecting much knowledge and many interpretations. Followers of Chan these days say when you go beyond the Buddhas and ancestors, you're trampling, these days, 12th century China, you're trampling both Buddhas and ancestors underfoot. That's why Yunmen just said to him, cake. Since it's cake, how does this explain going beyond the Buddhas and ancestors? This is one of my favorite lines in Zen. Try to investigate thoroughly and see. This investigate thoroughly means turn everything inside out, upside down, and all around. Our entire composition, our entire logic and rationale. Uh, because it can't be explained. Where are we? We're at 1133. Maybe I'll read the poem. So in various places, the verses about this case are extremely numerous, but they all go to a side of the question to make their comment. Shui Tu, who composed this Blue Cliff record, compiled it, also wrote poems, a poetic verse commenting on these. So here's the poem. Chan travelers asking about transcendent talk are especially numerous. Everybody's everywhere wondering about it. What is it? How can we talk about it? Can we identify it? And then there's a comment on the poem itself, the line, one after another they come forth and make up this kind of view, numerous as hemp or millet. His gap opens, see it. In the first story of something called the Woman Guan, which I mentioned earlier, it says about Woman that when he opened his mouth, he was like a clam. You could see his guts. There was nothing hidden. His gap opens. See it? Already open before the words, Shui Tu doesn't notice the smell of his own shit. Even the cake stuffed in doesn't stop him. He's replaced your eyes with wooden beads. Up till now, there's been confusion all over the world. I will draw a circle and say, haven't you been understanding this way? What end is there to chewing over the words of others? The great earth is desolate, killing people with sadness. So I'll hit cake. I think, yeah, this leaves us about 25 minutes. I'll put it to a vote. There's only a little bit more to go. Would you prefer to go to asking questions, which I'm completely open to, and I have no fixed notion that completing the story will do anything. Shall we take a vote, Laura? What do you think? Or you be the person who decides. I'll put that responsibility on you.
I'm interested to hear the rest of the text. Do we want to do a show of hands?
Okay, we'll continue with the story.
Yeah.
Acceptable? Wonderful. You never know where they're going to go. Ha ha ha. But I love this. The great earth is desolate, How do we feel today? Killing people with sadness. Chan travelers asking about transcendent talk are especially numerous. Okay, more commentary. Followers of Chan are especially fond of asking about this saying, talk that goes beyond Buddhas and ancestors. Haven't you heard? Yunmen said. All of you carry a staff. All of you, all of us, carry a staff across our shoulders and say, I am immersed in meditation. Talking about these monks with an identity, practitioners with an identity. I practice Buddhism. Um, One of the big influences on the event that I was at last Friday night, and which went on all day yesterday, and I couldn't attend because I was working with a group doing a one-day sitting, and I couldn't be this morning because I'm here. Uh, was influenced by great influence by uh, um, Korean Buddhism. There are a couple of students who are Asians, Koreans, who seemed, and there were two wonderful Korean Pure Land monks. This is the world of the Western Paradise and Amitabha, the Buddha of love and light. But they were also, now this is not a complaint. It's not even, it's just, it's what occurs. They were also very clear about what Buddhism is. That on some level I feel it's dangerous. Because there's a need, and that is uh, going outside our nostrils to find Amitabha, to worship Amitabha out there. And Amida in Japanese, Amitabha in Sanskrit, is right here. It's no other place. The entirety of Buddhist, whatever we want to call it, mythology, cosmology, is all aspects of our own mind. Period. They're all aspects of our mind that we use to help us. Avalokiteshvara is no place else but here. Tara is no place else but here. So there's a great story about Avalokiteshvara and Amitabha. In my mind, I love it. When Avalokiteshvara saw how much sadness and killing there was that's killing people in the world, their head exploded. They didn't know what to do, and Amitabha, the Buddha of light and love, came to their rescue. And unlike Humpty Dumpty, actually Amitabha came back into some form, which was I think it's 5 heads and 10,000 arms, in order to be able to relate, in order to be able to compassionately caress and be intimate with all of the sadness and the grieving and the violence perpetuated by that fear, if you will. So that's right here. This is our, if we wanted to call it responsibility, but if we twist responsibility backwards or reverse the syllables, the ability to respond, our capacity to respond, to be responsive, not the weight. So, haven't you heard, Yunmen said, all of you carry a staff across your shoulders, I'm a Buddhist, and say, I'm immersed in meditation, I'm studying the path, and then go looking for a truth that goes beyond the Buddhas and the ancestors. But I ask you, during the 24 hours of the day, I like this. This is the takeoff on walking, sitting, and lying down, right? But I ask you, during the 24 hours of the day, when walking, standing, sitting, and lying down, when shitting and pissing among the vermin in a roadside privy, when at the counter of the butcher's stall in the market, is there still any truth that goes beyond the Buddhas and ancestors? Let those who can speak of it come forward. If there isn't anyone who can, then don't stop me from acting this way and that, as I please. Then Yunmen went down from his seat. Often one would sit in formal teisho in a dais. Some can no longer tell right from wrong. They draw a circle, adding mud to dirt. There's a story about, I think Suzuki Roshi used to tell it. It's about uh, Zen, Zen, Zen whatevers, but mostly it's bodhisattvas. But Zen, uh, people wash themselves with dirt. What he means by that is that we're not averse to getting dirty, to joining people in the Saha world. That we can both join and I don't know if it's appropriate to even say free of, to just fully join, to give ourselves completely, as the 13th century Zen master Dogen said, to give ourselves to ourselves completely allows others to give themselves to themselves. So as Lama Rod Owen said the other night, he was the opening speaker. How I take care of myself takes care of others. To give myself to fully exploring my cognitive empire, if you will, my colonized mind, frees others. And then the dirt of the world, the sadness and the killing, we feel it. Don't mistake that. But the other thing that Suzuki Roshi would say is our struggle becomes our pleasure. Adding mud to dirt, putting on chains while wearing stocks. His gap opens. See it? What a big gap there is in this monk posing his question. Yunmen saw it opening up in his question, so he said cake, to block it up tight. Let's stop that right here. But this monk still wouldn't agree to stop. And it goes on. We go on. Instead, he went on asking. Thus, Shui Tu says, even the cake stuffed in doesn't stop him, doesn't stop us. Up till now, there's been confusion all over the world. Can you imagine that? In the 13th century, confusion all over the world. Can you imagine that in the 21st century? Some people think that there was a time when there wasn't any confusion. Then we'll get there. Followers of Chan these days just go to cake to understand, or else they go to beyond Buddhas and ancestors to make up theories. Since it's not in these two places, throwing it back at us. In the end, where is it? 30 years from now, when I've exchanged my bones, I'll tell you. And that's that for Yunmen. I think I'll stop sharing. Um, it's sort of peculiar. I can't tell you how long it took to enjoy these stories, to laugh with these people, and to see them everywhere throughout time and space. Yeah.
I put a link, John, to the Blue Cliff record
Oh yeah.
in the chat, but I wonder if there's a translation that you prefer or
Well,
recommend.
I'm sure that Shambhala has published has since Tom died a couple of years ago has ownership. Now, I don't know about ownership, but they publish everything that Tom translated, and I'm sure that without even looking, I'm sure.
Yes, this is Hinton. Is that
Oh, it's Hinton. Oh, I haven't read Hinton's yet.
okay?
Oh well, that must be in his new one, I'll say. That would be entertaining. I'd like to read Hinton. I think he's really wonderful, and I also think sometimes he has some, unlike me, uh, some fixed ideas that he's very certain about. And if there's anything I think I may have luckily garnered in these years, is there's not too much to be certain about.
Oh, I see. Thomas Cleary. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, Thomas Cleary. That's ancient times, the 70s. Yeah, yeah. They're, it's sort of amusing working with, for me, working with 17 to 23-year-olds or 4-year-olds who have no, in my experience, they don't know 2001, you know. So, let alone the 1970s, other than maybe Saturday Night Fever. Uh, cool. Thank you for putting that up, Laura. And I think people may enjoy it. Uh, um, I have to check Hinton out. I have probably all of his other poetic translations. Yeah, he's a great translator, and you can learn a lot about from him about what I'll call the cognitive empire, in the sense of the grammar and syntax of English versus the non-grammar and non-syntax of classical Chinese. The non, where everything is uh, contextually implied, pretty much, including gender, past, future, plural, so on. Um, and then he compares what I'll call and he may do this in the Blue Cliff Records, I don't know, uh, um, what I'll call exact translations of particular characters and their possible different meanings, and then does a, a translation, if you will, with each character of a poem that doesn't adhere to Romanization in any way, or to our understanding of what English might be. There's no ofs and I's and things like this, like I, like me. Uh, and for us to understand it to some degree, we have to stick those things in there, supposedly. Yeah. But to see the difference in English, using English words of how these characters relate is is fascinating. And then the jump to making it some form of syntax and grammar that we can relate to.
I put a link in the chat from Victoria too. It's a book by Thomas Cleary about the koan, I think.
About
It's called um, Thomas Cleary, No Barrier, Unlocking the Zen.
Oh yeah, Unlocking the Zen Koan. That's the woman gone. There's some great stories. The introduction to the woman gone there is a it's something I um, agree with completely. Meaning that uh, being a how shall I say um, non-authoritarian and being somewhat I always felt that there was something missing in the Japanese form of these Zen stories, and that their use was more institutional and hierarchical than their initial occurrence. And Mr. Cleary sort of bears that out in the introduction. Yeah, yeah. And it's an interesting thing also to think about how when whatever form of what we'll call Buddhism we're practicing has been institutionalized, and how it may well be hierarchically and authoritarianly designed to support a structure and reshaped in order to do that. Um, just something being suspicious, as I usually am, about these things. Yeah.
We have time for any Q&A if anyone wants to raise their virtual hand. I'll just mention briefly that if you would like to give Donna to support our ability to continue offering Dharma Sunday, we'll put the donate link in the chat. And another way, if you wish to donate time and volunteer, is to join the hybrid team, which includes hosts like myself and Aparna, and also um, studio pilots during hybrid retreats. So if you're interested in that, I'll put my email address also in the chat with the donate link. And I see Richard's hand. I think you should be able to unmute, Richard.
There we go. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am. We are.
Hey. First of all, thank you for this is the second Dharma Sunday I've attended where you've guided us through a story like this, and your comments and your enthusiasm are greatly appreciated. So thank you so much
Thank you.
for being with us today. You made a comment, and I'm not even going to try and paraphrase, but something to the effect of how miraculous it is to be alive in the midst of this, these causes and conditions. And I had already been thinking about a line that Thich Nhat Hanh used to give in his writings toward the end of his life, or before his stroke when he was still writing. And I don't know about the accuracy of it, but he attributed a saying to Lin Ji, something to the effect of, the real miracle is not to walk on water, but to feel the ground beneath our feet.
Yeah.
And I kind of took that, at least in the context it was presented, is sometimes we're so looking for the universal that we lose the particular. And kind of a call to be able to hold both. But anyways, I'd be interested in your, I don't know if you have any response to that saying that was attributed to Lin Ji.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it would be.
Yeah.
And also, I know that Thich Nhat Hanh was a Zen teacher as well as, and I think mostly people recognize him as a Buddhist, and um, so, and I wouldn't doubt that Lin Ji would be on his mind, and I agree with completely with that statement. I mean, we call this a hand, but before we called it a hand, it existed. What is it? How did it emerge? Not like an answer, but that it has emerged is just why do we have to walk on fire? Why do we have to, I don't know what, do seeming miraculous things to prove something? And why do we make these stories up when literally just the process of what I'll call being alive is miraculous. Uh, it's, um, it's beyond our even any concept we have of evolution. As we, deconstruct our entire idea of a self via science and gut biomes and systems of whatever little creatures doing whatever they do, evolving in response to causes and conditions that we don't even know about, that are changing how we think and feel. This is just stunning. It doesn't mean that we don't have a sense of self. That we have a sense of self is amazing. That the skandhas come together, the aggregates, and this thing called consciousness occurs is stunning. When people talk to me about souls and these other things, in the Buddhist world, consciousness simply is these aggregates coming together. Period. When the aggregates dissolve, come apart, as they do when we get old age, sickness, and death, they move into something else. As Thich Nhat Hanh's rebirth is himself saying, humus, grass, moisture in the air, clouds, and it's one continuous thing. If we look at one basic analysis back in the early wisdom school of Buddhism, is that we're earth, air, wind, fire, water. We're basic elements. And then everything shares these same basic elements in different, I guess we'll call them proportions. Trees and plants and squirrels. And it's rather amazing. Then that sense of our breath, of respiration itself, is beyond us. That we're literally respiring with everything. And that's what we mean by when the precepts are no longer a list of to-dos or to follows. Then it's very hard to do something that's doesn't respect, shall we say, doesn't recognize the shared miraculous existence. So I just, yeah. And that's the yoga of meditation and practice that brings our body and mind alive to feel this and to experience it, which is why they say the part there, it's not in vain.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. There's another story. I don't know if it might have been the story I did the last time, but there's a place where one of the teachers makes a remark about everybody wants whatever we want to call it, this enlightenment thing, but nobody wants to be a sweating horse. And there's a deep relationship between the realization, if you will, and the sweating horse. Yeah. Natalie, yeah.
You reminded me of the story from Dogen Ahi about his consideration of enlightenment, that he climbed to the top of the mountain and looked out and saw 1,000 more mountains. And for me, it's always been something to achieve, and it's been hard for me to understand. that there is no achievement in it. And my mind sort of works that way, and it's been challenged for me to just say it is what it is and nothing
Yeah.
more.
It's a big deal. I mean, this is, I'll just give an example. The students at Wellesley, they've been trained to achieve, period. So, and they're always aware that there should be some result. And as a result, they've drawn a circle and separated themselves from themselves, and only can understand themselves by a measured achievement from outside themselves. And that's a large part of the cognitive empire of the European Enlightenment, which, in my opinion, Buddhist practice is, I wouldn't say diametrically opposed, but dissolves in our way of being. And the more we become familiar with our requirement to achieve, to get something, and the dissatisfaction with ourselves, maybe the more we give up and just float. Our will is so strong, our self-will. Much of Zen practice is about taking a mortar and pestle to our will. The amazing thing is when we do those moments when we let go of our will, we find ourselves supported by everything, and not against, but with. This is it's difficult for us. That's why I would say that the first perfection, dana paramita, is huge. It is everything. There's no samadhi without giving up the will. There's no wisdom. Don't take my word for it. And we've gone a little bit over, but I just want to express my gratitude to Natural Dharma um, Fellowship for inviting me, and uh, you guys for attending. And I am always full of gratitude for our meetings. So thank you.